last question that I have going around, where it's just going to be each person having a chance to respond to it. After that, you guys can respond back and forth, and it'll just be a kitchen table conversation, okay? The next question is, if elected to Congress, what would your top 3 legislative priorities be? John, we'll start with you.
Well, I've already put in print that the first thing I would do would be to introduce the Federal Judiciary Jurisdiction Act. Not a lot of people know that Congress can strip the jurisdiction of the federal courts on any issue where it feels that they are messing up. And the same thing is taking matches away from children because they otherwise would burn down the house. I feel that way about a number of decisions that federal courts have made, sometimes sponsored by the ACLU, which I've been fighting for more than 20 years. And Congress can solve that problem. It can also solve the problem of public money going to ACLU hands because it passed in '76 the act that gave them money. So those 2 issues are among the first ones because I care about the competence of the courts of America, and I would act on those 2 things first thing.
All right, and Spence Campbell, what would your top 3 legislative goals be if elected to Congress?
Well, the first goal for me is to take every effort to return the government to the people. I think for the last 3 years, it's been pretty obvious that the parties in Congress have been working for themselves to the exclusion of us, and the result has been that the Republican Party was sort of shown the door in 2006. I think we have to, as a party, insist that our leaders work for the people that they represent, and if they do that, then a lot of the difficulties that we've encountered in the last several years, I think, would be addressed successfully. The biggest, once that's done, I think the biggest goal in Western North Carolina is to improve the economic situation of all of our citizens. We have a lot of work to do with a tax code that nobody understands and doesn't work for the citizens. We have problems with Social Security and Medicare. We have problems trying to figure out how to deal with the loss of jobs through NAFTA and other trade agreements that pretty much have eliminated traditional jobs in this part of the state, and we have to figure out a way to get people educated so that they can find jobs in the global economy and its impact here in Western North Carolina. And finally, I'd like to put at the top of my list improving national security, and we can start that process by sealing the border between America and Mexico and begin to work through the illegal immigration situation that is causing us economic mayhem and threatening us from a national security standpoint by pretty much inviting any potential terrorists to just walk right in. I think that's my list of priorities for right now.
All right. Dr. Mumpire?
Okay, let me start by what I'm not going to do. First off, I'm not going to run up to Washington and try to get a lot of pork. I'm not going up there to advance myself, and I'm not going to be a lockstep Republican. What I am going to do, and job one won't have anything to do with going to Washington. It'll have to do with at home. Set up that strong constituent service network that I talked about. That's the first and most important priority to me before I even darken the door up there. Number 2, find like conservative minds that are authentic and principled in their practice and try to join with those fellows to work with them to recapture Capitol Hill, and then fight waste and challenge the dysfunction that I think we're all so frustrated with up there.
All right, and we are going to take a break in just a little bit here, in just a few seconds. When we get back, we'll start, I'll just throw some issues out, and we'll let the candidates discuss them and go over a dialogue on why each person's idea may be the best to meet that challenge. You're listening to Take a Stand on 570 WWNC and AM 1400 The Peak, everywhere else online, live at takeastandshow.com. We'll continue with more right after this. Welcome back to Take a Stand here on 570 WWNC in Asheville, AM 1400 The Peak in Waynesville, and everywhere else live online at takeastandshow.com. We have in the studio with us John Armour, Spence Campbell, and Carl Mumpauer, all candidates for the GOP side of the ticket for the November election for the 11th Congressional District, one of the most hotly fought for and nationally viewed races that exists for the House of Representatives. We've seen that over the last couple of elections. No reason to believe it won't be the same this time around. Phone lines are closed right now. We are scheduled to continue this conversation all the way up till 5 o'clock, so we're going to hold off for your phone calls until a little bit later. And right now what we're going to do is just throw out some different issues. We're going to let each of the candidates go ahead and have conversations about it and see if we can't come up with a good solution to some of the challenges we face here in North Carolina and in the United States. And I want to remind people again that the campaign websites for each of the three candidates are listed under today's topics on takeastandshow.com, so you can go to one easy place and get all of the information from each of their campaigns as the conversation rolls along today on Take a Stand. All right, and so let's start off. We mentioned we were talking during the break about John McCain has proposed a summer-long break in the federal gas tax, and so we started a little bit of a conversation about taxes. The music came on, and meant we were going back on the air. I said, how about we start with taxes? Everybody kind of nodded their head yes. So let's throw it out there. Taxes, thoughts?
Well, a temporary reduction in a tax that's gone along for decades is like a Band-Aid on arterial bleeding. Whatever it does in the short run, in the long run, it's less than worthless. And the simple truth is, Economics 101 teaches this, there are all these Chinese who are now buying oil. The demand for oil has gone up. The supply has not gone up as fast. Economics 101 says the price goes up. And anybody who says otherwise is lying to the people. Now, there's a lot of lying out there, but let's label it for what it is.
This is about politics, not good policy. It's a Band-Aid, not unlike the economic stimulation package where we take borrowed money from China and give it to folks so they can spend money on products made in China. I think it's nonsense. We don't need a community welfare program from the federal government. We need them to fix the system, fix the real problems, and this is what government at the federal level does, and really in many ways at the state and local level. We go after the low-hanging fruit, and he can hold this up here as a great effort and exercise, but we need something more substantial than that.
I'd like to see a tax system that is actually designed to support a federal budget that makes sense and that works on behalf of the people. I see taxes as, in that context, as something we, in exchange for the privilege of being Americans, pay. But we should have a government that works directly on behalf of the American people to improve our lives, first and foremost, and then takes care of other really significant priorities like national security and other things that have to be done to support the welfare of the people. Right now, taxes are just, nobody understands why we're paying taxes. Everything is taxed. More and more things are taxed at every level. I think it's out of control, and one of the first things I would do would be to try to work through a system that is fair and equitable and focused on the priority of improving the lives of the people of Western North Carolina.
One thing I do like that McCain has done recently, maybe as recently as today or yesterday, he's talking about a one-year moratorium on earmarks. Now that can be a beginning to a systemic change. That can be the beginning of reconstructing the system where it's not a rigged lottery and people are reaching in the pork barrel and hauling money, our money, back to their districts on a random basis that's based in power more than good sound practice. So I admire him for that initiative.
Let me agree with something that Spence said, and I think Carl agrees as well, that the IRS is an irrational animal. It's, 100,000 pages of law that no one has ever read or ever will read, but there's special interest provisions in clause after clause and page after page. And we've got to get rid of the IRS and replace it with a more rational tax structure, of which there are two possibilities, the fair tax and the flat tax. But I think the first step is to sunset the IRS, to put it in the law that it dies on a certain date, and that will focus congressional attention on what replaces it.
What